Okay, so we had a little technical difficulty there. Apparently, our camera system was set up to record for 2 hours. It shut off. That's okay. We had to go potty anyway, right?
Yeah, 2 hours. 2 hours, and I'm only, where are we at? I'm only 23, 24, stuck in Independence, Kentucky. Then I worked about a year there, a year and a half. Got into the construction trade. I thought I was going to go to college. That didn't work out so well. Matter of fact, the VA rep that I was trying to go through college, the VA counselor was like, if you were any other color, I could send you to college. And I was like, no. So I've been pretty proud of my dad that way. We never, he was part American and Native American. Never taken. I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but affirmative action really didn't set well with anybody in my family. So nobody. It was all merit based. Anything that we got, you had to work for, and my family is proud of that. And matter of fact, I was so proud of it that I wouldn't ask my dad to help me get back out west. I made the mess. I stayed there in Kentucky and worked out of town jobs, worked construction jobs. Got back where I had a little pickup truck, and then that's what I did for the next few years is just load up my clothes and my tools. And I heard Phoenix was a great place to be working if you knew construction and you were willing to work in the heat. So I went down to Phoenix and worked there, and I think that was 87 or 88. Worked up in Winslow, Arizona. And then that's where I met this. I knew this girl. I met this girl that I knew in high school. She got married to a guy, and I knew her dad real well. I was real close to her dad. He was taught me about the mountain men and stuff like that. So I'm in Winslow, Arizona, and she's like, "You're a smart guy. You should go to college and stuff like that." And I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a try." And I paid out of my pocket and everything, and went to started classes with Northern Arizona University, and then to keep myself in a paycheck, I joined the Department of Corrections in the state of Arizona, and went through they had a little academy. They had just finished a prison there in Winslow, Arizona, and I was a prison guard for a year, which is
and going to school at the same time.
For the first quarter,
right?
First quarter, it didn't work out so good. It didn't work out so good at all because they wanted me to switch shifts, and they wanted me to work the swing shift. And I told my supervisor, I was like, "I'm in college and everything." And he's like, "Well, no, you're still on plebe status, so you got to do what we say." So I had like 2 brick and mortar classes in Flagstaff where NAU's actually at. The rest of them were at a satellite school there in Winslow. So I drove to Flagstaff and I asked this professor if he would help me go to the admin office and change this to next quarter. We hadn't even taken the midterms yet. And he's like, "Well, that's not the way it works. That's not the way it works," type thing. Well, I didn't get any love on that. So the next day I did my first swing shift at the prison, and all the guys coming back from the work crews and everything, you got to frisk them and everything, and then they go to dinner and then they go back to their cells. And then I was told about 7 that evening to pick up these 9 or 10 inmates and take them back to the cafeteria. I was like, "What for?" And they got class and everything. So I picked them all up and took them in there, and I'm wearing a cap like that, and I got my badge and everything, and I'm not allowed to touch, I'm supposed to be watching them. I'm not allowed to take the class. Well, there's that same professor giving these guys a class, not the same subject, but giving them a class, and he could feel the tension in the room, and he's like, "Excuse me, officer, do I know you? Did you got something to say?" And I took my hat off and I said, "Yeah, I know exactly how to get a college education in the state of Arizona. I'm going to hold up a liquor store," So I was pretty upset about that. I ended up dropping out of college, and then working the rest of the year there. It was a decent job. I did get into tracking a little bit more than I did in Ranger Recon. there's this guy named Lieutenant French who really knew how to track in there in northern Arizona, and I would just hang out with him and everything. And I don't think I impressed him too much, but he did teach me a little bit about tracking. And we had some inmates that took off and everything, but I wasn't instrumental in any of those. As a matter of fact, I was worse on one of them, but that's another story. But the working there at the prison just really made me see that, there's a lot of people there that didn't really do anything wrong, and that you and I wouldn't do. They just got caught, or their temper got the best of them, or whatever. That told me that life is, you either you wear the white hat or you wear the black hat. But sometimes the brown hat fits just as well. We're on both sides. And I end up leaving there and going up to Nevada and working a little bit around my dad. He was in the uranium or the strip mines for gold in Barrick was the name of the company up in Elko, Nevada. And my little brother, who had lost his daughter, he was working underground for gold mine. And have you ever been underground in a mine? Mm-hmm. Not a good place for tall people. Not a good place for tall people.
Come out looking like a question mark.
Yeah, I was like, nah. So I ended up going up to Seattle and working with my cousins in the construction trade. And they were all stoners, and I was working with some stoners and everything. And one of his friends was a stoner, but good carpenters, really good carpenters, and we were sought after as a framing crew. We did clean work, we did efficient work, and we were making pretty decent money. But then my cousin stuck me with one of his stoner friends, and I got knocked off of the wall, walking the walls. I got knocked off one of his stupid ideas, and I broke some ribs. And ended up in ICU. I mean, I got a perforated lung and everything. Well, I'm recovering from that, and I'm kind of walking around downtown Seattle and everything, and I run into this ranger buddy of mine. And he's like, "What are you doing?" He said, "You're a good soldier. You need to go back in the military." I was like, "No, I'm done with that. I'm done with that." This is 1988. Yeah, 1988. Maybe. No, 89. It was 89. And he's like, "Well, my company commander, he's a good buddy of mine and everything." And I'm like, "Good buddy of yours?" Well, this is Special Forces Reserves. He goes, "No, don't go active duty. Go the National Guard Reserves. Go to the Green Berets." He said, "It's a great life." And he was telling me about guard bumming. And I said, "Well, that sounds like a lot of fun." All right, so I told him I would meet with his company commander. And I met him the next week, and I was like, "If you can get me out of here in a week, I'll join." "Well, you can't. You got to come in to drill this weekend." And it was amazing. I mean, I showed up on a Friday afternoon. They gave me this little card. I got uniforms and everything. The next day, I'm jumping out of a C-141 to get back on jump status. And he's like, yeah, you passed all the tests and everything. We're going to send you to be an 18 Echo. I'm like, I don't want to be an 18 Echo. "Oh, you got to be an 18 Echo. We need commo guys." And I was like, "Yeah, all right." So I thought I was going straight to Fort Bragg. There's this new thing called selection in 1989. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I ended up in Fort Gordon because my 05 Bravo MOS had been phased out, and they called it 31 Charlie now. So the one thing I was missing was typing class. I had to go back to Fort Gordon for typing class, of all things. Well, I met these, what they call them back then, Rep 63s, a bunch of guys that were in National Guard and Reserves going to the Q course too. And they were all there. And the Sergeant Major, the National Guard Sergeant Major, saw this E5 with a Grenadier Raider patch. I had the 82nd patch on my right arm, which was I was a god at Fort Gordon, Georgia. There wasn't any vets left. All the Vietnam veteran guys had left, So they got this combat vet at Fort Gordon now, I was an E5, and but the sergeant major's like, hey, everybody's going up to this selection thing and failing out miserably. And we got guys in National Guard units going to Ranger School and failing out miserably. We want you to do a PT program. So I come up with a PT program, and it was pretty simple. It was just like, okay, everybody go buy a rucksack. They didn't have any jungle packs or jungle Alice packs at Fort Gordon, so we all had to go to Army surplus stores and buy our own rucksacks. And I drew a bunch of rubber ducks, and I told the guys, you're going to do PT with me, and you're going to do PT in boots, and you're going to do in pants, and there is no shorts or tennis shoes or anything, and we'd either run through the woods with those rubber ducks or we'd go on ruck marches, and we just got ready for selection. And I was pretty proud of that because 1990, I actually started the first one. I'd went up there a week before the other guys got done with their rest of their AIT classes. Well, I got up there and I got all the way to like Wednesday or Thursday of the first selection class of 1990 in January, and Fort Gordon hadn't set up my chest X-ray, so I had to leave. And I was like, oh no,
son of a bitch.
But I was determined to be a Green Beret because I'd left my truck in Seattle. I'd given my tools away. I'd given away my dishes. I'm not going back. I'm not going back for any amount of money in the world. Either I'm gonna make it or I'm gonna die trying. So I was in the next selection class, which was the other 12 or 13 guys that were training with me. We all made it. We all got selected, and rough. It was rough. It was the initial, selection courses. So your first week is all individual stuff and Q course, star exam, stuff like that. And you think that nobody's watching you out there. It's amazing how they can quote every cuss word you're saying going through Bones Fork or something. So there's people out there.
Naked Creek and Bones Fork. Yep.
Yep. And then team week was rough. It is on everybody. Yeah, and I was so shocked that I got selected, and they're like, okay, we want you to go on. I said, but you got a GT score. Your GT score is 127, which was godlike, And I don't know how I got a 127. I think because when you go back in, you redo all the tests and everything. You just have more life experience.
Yes, exactly.
And so it doesn't equate from just getting out of high school to now I'm 20, 25, 26 years old. So my GT score was high. Like, oh, we want you to be a medic. And I was like, absolutely not. I said, I've heard about the medic classes, and I think we all wanted to go down to Fort Sam Houston and chase all the Army nurses and everything, but I did not want to buddy up with somebody and do digital rectal class, or I couldn't deal with other people's puke and other people's blood, and just the thought of being a medic just grossed me out. And I said, no, I want to be an engineer. I want to be, I've been in the construction trade and everything, like medic or commo guy. And okay, commo guy. So I showed up in Morse code, and within advanced Morse code, they called it. Within 4 or 6 weeks, I was like, "Yep, I guess I can't do it. I'm failed. I failed it again." So, and Mark Bauer, remember Mark Bauer? Mm-hmm. He was part of that course and everything. There was like 5 or 6 of us that just couldn't pass Morse code, and so I told my operations sergeant. I said, "Well, call back to my unit and tell them I want to be a Bravo or a Charlie. I'd rather be a Charlie." He said, "Okay, no problem. The rest of you guys are going to go on a parachute detail tonight, and then next week we're going to send you out to the SEER school, and you're going to be you're going to be guards at SEER school." Well, this is before SEER school was part of the pipeline, you know. And So I was standing there in formation. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get down there. I'm going to go to the Charlie course. I'm going to finally get what I want in life and blah, blah, blah. Well, that operations sergeant comes out and says, yep, you're all going to be guards out there except for you, LaRue. You're going to be a student in Q Corps or in the SEER school. I was like, why am I going to be a student? And he pulled out that Morse code graduation certificate from the first time I was at Fort Gordon doing Morse code and said, you already know Morse code. You're bullshitting everybody. So I got caught. Not a really integrity violation, but close enough. You know.
So technically, though, so you go to SEER school.
Oh,
right?
I got my ass beat.
Technically, he's in jail again. Mark that down.
No. It was even worse. It was even worse, Dylan. So we're there at the parachute detail that night, and all these guys are telling me about this bearded one at SEER school. I was like, I'm not scared of nobody. No man scares me. You know, I was big and had muscles and all kinds of stuff. I said, there's no man that scares me. And they're like, oh no, he's huge. He's going to tear your ass up. Well, I don't know who I'm passing these parachutes to. It's a SWIC guy, right? They're jumping. We're not. We're just going to pick up the parachutes. And I said, and you know me, and I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, I know.
I said, I'll bet you guys $100 that I will kiss the bearded one while I'm out there in this camp that you guys are talking about. And oh, it's a bet. We'll give you a case of beer and put a $100 bill on there. I was like, no problem. So fast forward a couple weeks, you know, and we go and we learn all of our stuff. Great. I mean, I met some of the best. I mean, the heroes that we read about, you know, in the 80s are actually teaching out there. You know, Dan Pitzner and Sergeant Major Nail and One-Eyed Nail and all these guys are fantastic people. And I'm loving it. I'm so glad to get through selection because I'm just around all these people that I've just idolized for decades, you know, going on a decade. I mean, I just idolize these people. And so get out there. We get to all the way through our evasion phase and we get captured and everything. We go to the RTL and everything, and I go to my first interrogation. And I'm sitting there doing push-ups and everything, and I've got this cover story, and I got a pretty good cover story. I'm a 63 Bravo wheeled vehicle mechanic, you know, and I know the firing order of the old Jeep and all that kind of stuff. And the instructor's like, okay, interview's over. I'm going to come out of character a little bit. You don't remember me, do you? And I'm like, no, I was still in character, you know. And he's like, no. You were handing parachutes to me a few weeks ago, you know, a couple weeks ago. The bearded one's out there waiting for you.
Right.
I got out there and I met this guy. This guy was huge. I mean, massive. And he hit me across my face, and it was like getting hit with a spade shovel, right? He tore my ass up. Never did kiss him. But I got tore up in SEER school. So when I got, the reason I bring all that up is because when I got back to AMIC, I was like, give me that code test. I will be your combo guy. I will be anything you want. Don't send me back to SEER school. So I finally got through the Q course. I went there, and we were having a rough year that year. Of course, that's the year the Desert Storm was going on. Mm-hmm. And you know, we're almost through the Q course, and then Desert Storm comes up, and we're just like, we all want to go quit the Q course and go be machine gunners or anything for the 82nd Airborne, you know, because we're going to this big war. There's going to be this huge war, and we don't want to miss it. Well, it turned out to be a 100-hour war, you know, and we graduated, and then there I am, stuck. Graduate the Q course, put on my Green Beret. I'm in 12th Group Reserves, and it's like, okay, go back to Washington. I don't want to go back to Washington. I want to go active duty. Well, you can't do it. You got to go back to Washington. So I went back to Seattle, and I showed up for my first drill with a recruiter, and they couldn't do nothing about it. They were.
You notice how little by little Sue just takes and takes. Nope, I'm going to do this. Nope, I'm going to do that. Fuck you, I'm going to do this. I like it.
No, I was
he doesn't settle. Does he? Doesn't settle a bit. I like that.
I was just tired of everybody telling me what I was going to do. And I was like, no, I found a home. I want to be in. Well, and then I went to the MEP station there in Seattle, which was great because Washington doesn't have an income tax. My first 4 years I was paying the state of Utah all this income tax, and I never went back to Utah. But they're like, well, what group do you want? I said, I want 10th group. I want to go to Germany. I'm a single guy. I didn't get Germany, but I did get to drive across the country and go to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, and showed up to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, and it was a great choice because most of the guys were coming back from Desert Storm. Desert Storm was pretty much over, but 10th group was still there and provide Comfort 1 for the Kurds up in the mountains. So I didn't stay on Fort Devens for more than a weekend. And the sergeant major there, he said, hey, you're Halo qualified. You're not going to the BOP. You don't need to go to the BOP. We need Halo guys. We need commo guys on the Halo team. You're going to Turkey. He put me first thing smoking to Turkey. I didn't get to meet my team right away. I was in Incirlik Air Force Base. And then I met my team later. I was just loading helicopters. And then they finally come out about 6 weeks later. They finally come out of the camps and everything. We were in a tent city there and everything. My team sergeant, John Rodolfo, he's like, you speak French? And I go, yeah. And he goes, good. We're gonna do a joint jump with the French.
Why did he ask if you spoke French?
Because he heard that I'd been in the Legion.
Okay.
All right. And and that's what I'm leading up to here. So here's my first. I mean, I'm an E5, and young. I'm still 26, 27 years old, and I'm giving this class to all these French guys on here's how we don our parachute. And I did everything perfect. You'd have been proud of me. I stapled up all the pieces and parts of the parachute to a piece of plywood and explaining all the pieces and parts. And we have completely different harness than the French do and everything. And I explained it all to them and, the opening gate and everything. And Colonel King, I don't know if you knew Colonel King, Charles King, but he was Major King. He was my company commander for the American Army. And he spoke French. Well, he'd gone to college for French, and he was trying to tell me that I was conjugating my verbs wrong and this and that and the other. And I was like, trust me, sir, that this is how they really speak it. And he had no idea I'd been in the French Foreign Legion. Well, this little lay car, remember those little Hyundai-looking things? This little lay car comes driving up, and this big, tall officer gets out, and it was my company commander from the French Foreign Legion. Not my platoon leader. My platoon leader had been killed, but he was like, je connais toi, and I was like, oh, crap. And what could I do? I was busted here. This was 1991, and I just went to a position of attention, French position of attention, and gave him the French salute, and I was like, Legionnaire LaRue, deserter, 1986. That's all I could tell him, right? And my company commander standing there is like, what the hell's going on? Well, we keep on going back in French, And I was like, well, listen to French. You speak French, this is the story, And he's like, where's your jump wings and everything? And I was like, I lost those in a bar fight, And so he took his jump wings on and put them on me, the French jump wings. And he goes, yeah, if you're back in uniform, you got to wear your jump wings, Good to see you. Good to see you, Johnny, blah, blah, blah. My friend Art Stout and I were walking through the tent city that night. Art Stout was the intel guy on my team. Art Stout and I had been to Ranger School. And that's what I loved about Special Forces. I mean, it was like a family reunion. Here's all these guys I was in the Rangers with, and they're on my team now, I had P-Man and Art Stout. And so it was just, I felt at home, finally. I found a home, and we're walking by the company commander's tent, and he's, this is night in Turkey, Incirlik, Turkey. So he's talking to the staff back at Fort Devens, Massachusetts, during the day, right? And he's like, yeah, LaRue deserter. And he had out a speakerphone. And Art and I stop and we're listening through the canvas walls and everything. So yeah, LaRue's a deserter. I'm like, well, where the hell did he go? It's Incirlik, Turkey. What is he heading to Istanbul or what? No. He's a deserter from the Legion. And they're like, oh fuck, Chuck. Everybody knows that. We had to get him another passport through the State Department and everything. Everybody knows he's a deserter from the Legion. What? So that was the start of my career of running. Kept on running into these French guys, right? And went back from that. I mean, I wasn't in. We were there a few months, and the poor guys, they'd been there for months on Provide Comfort One. And the team sergeant come back in and said, well, who wants to go to sniper school? Well, me. Sit down, Cherry. You just got to this team. You shut the hell up. You don't ask for nothing. So I sat down, And that team sergeant went through everybody else on that team.
Nobody else wanted to go.
Everybody's like, no, I don't want to just go home and grab a bolt action rifle and go down to Fort Bragg. I want to see my wife. I want to see my girlfriend. Blah. So I got to go, and so everything was just falling in place for me, and I got to go to sniper school. And so that was the end of 1991. 92, I was loving life. And ended up going to Belgium and being the only, I was the first American to pass the Belgian Commando Instructor course, only because I spoke French, and it seemed like everything I did for the next couple of years in 10th Group, just the sun was shining on my ass, and again, picked the right group because 10th Group was, we went to Somalia, and again, I went with the Belgians, ran into some French officers there, we went to Sarajevo, French counter-sniper stuff, did all kinds of stuff with them in Sarajevo, ran into the French Foreign Legion again, officers that knew me there. I think the one thing that really...
You hear that rain?
Yeah.
That's rain. It's coming. I told you it was coming. That's okay. Keep going.
We're high and dry, though. High and dry. 94, April 94. We lost a couple of helicopters. We had just gone back to... I had just got married, and I had a little baby girl at the house, and two. When I got married, she had two kids from a previous marriage, but I was good with that, and my sergeant major wanted me to go back to Incirlik and then go down to Zaku in the safe house. We had a forward operating base in Iraq for the no-fly zone, and the 10th Group was set there. The whole company went as a CSAR mission, and each team took a week, and they were on call all the time, no drinking, none of that. If a pilot went down, you're like firemen. You're on the helicopters and you're going to go recover that pilot or body or whatever. But we also had a medic position and a commo position down into the safe house in Zaku inside of Iraq. And the sergeant major wanted me to go back and fill that position. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm married now. I need I need the per diem. Per diem. And at Incirlik, Turkey, we got $38 a day for incidentals. If you went down to the safe house, you got $5 a day. Well, I was thinking of the per diem, and I'm going to buy something nice for my wife or set some furniture up, whatever. And so I said, send Barclay. He just got out of the BOP. Send that guy. It's a FID mission. He'll enjoy it. You get to work with the Kurds and stuff like that. So I shirked that responsibility.
Right.
Never will forgive myself for that, ever, because months later, or just a couple months later, we ended up going down there to Zaku anyway as a show of force. The whole company went down there, and then two helicopters loads of people got on there and got shot down by the Air Force. We didn't know they got shot down by the Air Force. Well, we drove out there to that site, and all the guys that were back at Incirlik on the Seaux mission, only 2 of them got on the plane or on the birds. It was Air Force guys jumped all over this. Huge cover-up. And at the time we're picking up the bodies, we had no idea that the Air Force had shot them down, you know. But that's part of my survivor's guilt there, you know, is when, you know, I know Barclay's in one of those body bags. And a guy named, a good friend of mine, Ricky Robinson, 18 Delta, also lost his life. And after that, I never shirked a responsibility or duty because of the per diem or what the per diem rate was. If you're going to go, you're going to go, period.
Got to go.
You know, and I always volunteered. So we got back from that, and 2nd Battalion was one of the first battalions to move out to Fort Carson, Colorado. Right. And I kept on doing the same thing, kept on volunteering to go places and do things, and I was really enjoying life, and you know, that's when we went to Bosnia and went to a couple other ones there, but 10th group had it going on, and I was asked to go to Delta selection several times, and I was like, and they knew I could do it. That's why the recruiters kept on asking me to do it, because I was one for, you know, on a 3-day weekend, I'm taking off from Fort Carson and going across the mountains to my house in Cripple Creek or something like that, 60 miles away, whatever. I was in great shape, and and all my friends are going there, and they're getting selected for OTC and everything. And they're like, LaRue, you'd love it over here in Delta Force. Go to Delta Force. And I'm like, no, it's a completely different mission. I said, you guys do one mission, what we did in the Rangers. I said, I got 5 other missions, and I'm doing all of them. I'm doing FID, I'm doing UW, I'm doing humanitarian assistance, I'm doing, you know, Somalia, or I'm doing combat search and rescue, and being a ski instructor and everything. And I thought that going to Delta Force would just narrow my focus so bad, especially during the Clinton years, when we knew that most of Delta Force made it to Green Ramp and then never pulled the trigger on them. But if you're on a regular ODA, you're going to all these different places, and you're getting put there for months, and you're doing what a Green Beret's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Whether it's combat or not, you know, they have other missions.
Yeah.
Outside of that,
lots of other missions, and anything that was come up in the news, and 9 times out of 10, I was already there. My family knew that. My extended family knew that if something came up on the news, well, I had already probably left the night before, or a couple days before, and I'm already there. So, kind of enjoying that and kind of living that, and then it all came crashing down in '97. And you know, my second or third time from Bosnia, I come home and my wife's just like, I want you to get out. I want you to get out. And she'd embarrassed me, and she'd accused the team sergeant of my team of sexual harassment, and he didn't do anything out of the ordinary or anything. But you know, the Army being what it is, you know, he lost his position, and they moved him on. And when I got back and we got the 15-6 all cleared up, I made her go back in and apologize to the command, saying that no, what he did wasn't inappropriate at all. You know, he had another guy there, and just showed her a Christmas or a birthday card or whatever. But it kind of embarrassed me, and I went to Enoch, and I came back out of that, and I ran into Henry Ramirez again, Sergeant Major Henry Ramirez, and him and I did not get along. 7th Group guy, and he was part of the Bone clones. Remember the Bone clones we had? And Henry Ramirez had it in for me, and I was like, well, do what you will, because I'm getting out in 30 days. You know, I'm not re-enlisting. And I got out in '97, and wish I hadn't, but I did for wife and family. And '99, I stayed in the National Guard. I didn't do a whole lot with them until started divorce procedures. So and it got nasty. The whole thing got nasty. But my 19th group, I had I represented myself and another guy in my company. We represented the National Guard Bureau in sniper competitions, which was based out of Camp Robertson, Little Rock, Arkansas. So we got to keep our M24s at home. The bolt-action rifle, not a big deal. But if we were told to go to a competition, we would get activated and we would go to these competitions and everything. So I did have a construction company and all that, and made good money and everything until he got into divorce court, and then it just destroyed everything. So that's pretty much how it went until you and I met. After the divorce was said and done, and I thought I was going to go back to the construction company, I realized that she'd also put the I gave her the house and everything. She fought for the house. I fought for the company. Well, she was an officer in the company, and she told the state that we were bankrupt, which we weren't, but, I couldn't buy any more materials and everything, so that pretty much shut me down. And I didn't want to go back active duty, but I thought I could feel something coming, did sniper instructor jobs for the National Guard, and then I would be a sniper instructor for different groups. And then I would also go for JRTC. I would be the Op 4. They would bring me in as a tracker because I've been all over the country teaching tracking. I worked with a company called UTS that giving SEER school instructors tracking classes. Mm-hmm. So I would go all over the country teaching people tracking, mostly search and rescue guys, or some law enforcement and stuff like that. Military wasn't too big on tracking, but there was a few guys that got into it.
I went through tracking school in Malaysia.
Yeah, that was the first group had the only one. They had a Malaysian tracking school.
Yeah, I was 25th ID, so they sent us there.
That was a pretty good gut check too.
Mm-hmm. Walking through and tigers and cobras and all kinds of shit out there.
Yeah, but we focus mostly on just visual tracking, and that's where I met Randy Wurst. They'd bring me in. I met the 5th group team, Davis's team, and Dan Peditore and I. Mm-hmm. And I got called in the middle of the night and said, "Hey, what are you doing right now?" And I said, "Well, not a whole lot. I'm working construction, and there's 2 feet of snow outside, so I'm not going to do a lot for the next week." And so Colonel Naylor, or Major Naylor, he said, "Hey, can I put you on active duty orders? Would you come down to Yuma and track this 5th group team? I think they're all big and bad." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I ended up tracking those guys after their little mission. And Dan Peditore was pissed when he found out it was me tracking, and so was Davis. But had a big setup and everything. But that's kind of funny because that was 99 or 2000. That was 2000, winter of 2000. Well, I decided I was going to go back active duty, but I was going to go back Air Force, and I ran into Vic Allen. And I was OCing for 10th group teams as a 19th group guy. And Vic Allen and I got in an argument over 5th group and 10th group and stuff like that. And he's like, "Well, you're pretty smart. You need to come back to work." And I said, "Well, I'm going to go be an Air Force JTAC." And he chewed me out so hard. He made me feel about that high. And I said, okay, whatever. I'll drop the Air Force packet and I'll go back active duty Army. Well, I'd never heard of this accessions program. I went to Denver MEP station, got back in, and got orders to go to Fort Bragg. And I was like, "Fort Bragg? I'm 10th group guy. I need to go back to 10th group." No. You're on this accessions program. So I ended up being like 4 or 5 months, just helping students out, doing PT mostly for the students at the ECHO course, and doing S1 errands and stuff like that. But This is winter of 2001. Winter of 2000, and then of course I have no Christmas break or anything like that, so I got CQ every other day for SWIC, and then rolled into January and February, and I finally go to the secessions board. They only held it like 2 or 3 times a year, and Sergeant Major Bishop. I was out of 5 guys. I was the only one that actually went back to a group. One guy had to go back to Charlie had to go back to the Delta course, and then a Bravo had to go to the Charlie course, and then a guy who had a Delta who had PMT'd himself out of the military so he could go to Bosnia and work contracting. Tried to come back in, and they sent him down to the 82nd for a year. And then a guy who's been at the 82nd for a year came back in and said, "Hey, I'm down to the 82nd with a long tab, and they're treating me like a god. I don't want to come back to Special Forces." So that was my introduction to the board. And I went in there and I told them, "Yeah, I want to come back in and do my thing." And they're like, "Well, you can't make a decision." And I was like, "Stop right there, Sergeant Major. Yeah, well, this is the 3rd time you've been in the Army." And I was like, "Yeah, but I know what it's like out there in the civilian world. You don't. I want to be here, and I want to be on ODA. Send me to an ODA. We do all of our own work. We do all of our own heavy lifting. Oh, and at the end of the day, I'm an E7. I got to grab a mop bucket and clean the latrine."
That's true. That's true. Folks think it's just, you're a operator and you got like a team behind you cleaning up behind. That's not true.
No, you have no privates. No,
we don't
privates.
have privates at all. The lowest ranking guy in the company is E6, right?
Yeah.
You may get an E5 once. We didn't in A15. We didn't have any E5s, but that means E6s and 7s are out there, and E8s did it too.
Yeah.
We're out there mopping and sweeping and buffing. Well, we didn't buff in A15, but mowing. We had to do all that shit. We got what we got.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's just what, and we accepted that.
Mm-hmm.
We accepted that, but we were proud to do it. I mean, we didn't like it, but we were proud to do it because we wouldn't do it. We wouldn't have it any other way. Mm-hmm. We didn't want them bringing in privates and changing things for us. But Bishop was pissed, and he said, "Well, I'm going to send you to 5th group." Or he goes, "Well, they sent me out, and then they brought me back in. And they said, well, congratulations, you're the only guy that's going to go to a group." And I was like, "But we got to get you away from that evil ex-wife of yours." I was like, "Well, good, send me to Germany. I've never been stationed in Germany." And I "No, you're going to 5th group." And I was flabbergasted. I mean, my chin hit the floor. I was like, "I'm a walking sunburn and a ski instructor. What am I going to do in 5th group?" And they're like, "Well, you're a redneck. You'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy Fort Campbell." I was like, No. I was like, bass fishing tournaments bore me. I don't watch NASCAR, and the WWF ain't real. And they're like, "Oh, Bishop got mad about that." He's like, "You're going to 5th group no matter what." So I ended up going to 5th group. I showed up to 5th group, and I remember I drove around the compound twice, just looking at, which lieutenant colonel was in charge of this battalion, that battalion. I had orders for 310. 3-5, 3rd battalion. And I walked into the S1, and I said, "No, I'm not going to work for Max Bowers." I run into him at 10th group, and him and I did not get along. I said, "I'm not going to work for Max Bowers." Well, luckily, and I can't remember who it was, I think it was Silverstrom. Silverstrom was up there. And they're like, "Oh, that's Sue LaRue. Yeah. Tracker, sniper, blah, blah, blah. We want him in A15. And that's how I got into.
And you were like, "Thanks, Eric."
And I'm like, "Okay, A15, whatever that is, that's SIF company." So I went to the SIF company. And that's where you and I met.
Right.
Yeah.
And our first trip together was the invasion of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because so we're talking now.
You're on 1-4? No. Jeff Ayers' team, right?
Yep, Jeff Ayers' team. With Carl Erickson.
Right, and I was on 1-3 at that time, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Good times? Sleeping in the rose garden. Remember the rose garden? Sleeping in tents
Oh yeah,
around the fire.
yeah.
That's all we had. That's all we had. So Afghanistan, was cut and dry. We we hit Masira Island, and we arrived at Masira Island and jumped over via C-130 to Afghanistan and did what we had to do there, which is pretty good. We got to play. I call it that. You know what I mean?
Well, I was still the outlaw, especially on Jeff Ayers' team. Jeff Ayers and I did not get along. Captain Smith and I did not get along. They wanted to be assaulters.
Yes, everybody wants to be an assaulter.
Everybody wanted to be an assaulter, and I think out of my team, and we had some great snipers. We really did. We had some great commo guys, and that's all. As the SNOT or the SO, our job was to make sure that you guys had all the information you needed to prepare for the mission.
And this was early in our SIF or SF life of being able to send photos via or images over radio.
Yeah, that was tough. That was tough.
Back
yeah.
then, we're looking at what
some of
the
the
hell
one,
am I looking at right now?
One image usually took about 45 minutes.
Yes.
And burned up all of our battery power and stuff like that. So yeah, we would do that, and we would practice that. And the team, the rest of the team, that Jeff Ayers and Smith didn't like us very much, and they would tell us, "You're going to go to the ASP and get this guard check, and that you guys just sit out in the woods and do that all day long." Well, we'd go there, we'd drive around it and take pictures and everything, and then we'd go to the archery range and send in the messages all day long and everything. But if you remember right, in Afghanistan, I stood on my sword. I stood on my sword on that one mission going in there. I did not like the idea. Our company commander, the initial plan was we were gonna offset. We were gonna walk 5 kilometers into the target, and everybody had different breach points, which made Jeff Ayers of 1-4 happy as hell because now he got to be an assaulter, right? And I was like, no, absolutely not. And I made that big terrain model in the back, looked like a little volcano project from high school or something. And I was like, no, see this little path up here that winds on the map? You don't do that in Kansas. I was like, that depicts relief. We can get up here and we can look down into the compound and we can pull security. And that's where the command needs to be, and that's where we need to have some snipers. These guys do not need to go to the breach point. Well, we got AC-130 over here. It takes 4 minutes to call in the first ordnance from a AC-130.
This was Hazarka Dam.
Yep. And I fell on my sword so hard about that, and chewed out Jeff Ayers and chewed out my team command about that so hard. Greybeard was attached to us, our team, and him and I were ready to go to physical blows. And to the point where I had to remember I got a picture of it somewhere. I had to unload all my ammo. Yeah. I was the only guy in Afghanistan that wasn't allowed to have ammo.
I remember that.
I was allowed to have my guns, but not ammo. And no, Dylan, I didn't go to jail, but I might as well been. Yeah. So I was what was it? DACO. That's the job they gave me. Mm-hmm. I got to escort you guys out to the aircraft, and then I had to be there when you guys came back and pick up the prisoners. So that was my designation for that mission. But I would not give up on principle, and I know we've glazed over them and hit the wave tops of them, but I've seen too many, and you have too in your career, seen too many people killed in training. Mm-hmm. So we've seen too many people killed when they just break principle or just blow off principle. There's just rules you don't break, especially when it comes to planning for combat, because that's all it is a plan. None of those plans survive infiltration. You and I both know that. But at least if everybody's on the same sheet of music, maybe we'll come out of this without looking stupid. And that's what really sets Special Forces apart from everybody else. Is we are intricate planners, and we plan well, and we rehearse. We do lots of rehearsals, and when people just assume that the enemy's stupid, then that makes you look stupid.
Yeah.
And
You're right.
I get in fights with our third group brethren all the time. And they're like, well, the third group's got, the most casualties out of the whole GWAT, and the third group's got the most silver stars. And I'm like, you know why they got the most silver stars? Is because fifth group guys and 10th group guys, we did the job, and we were successful. The guys that get the silver stars are the ones who don't plan right, and they get caught in a pickle, and it ends up being a huge firefight. So now you got to give them an award, So that's.
So hold on a second, Dylan. We're going to pause for this part. Let's let it record for a little bit more. Hold on.
I was about to say we are 10 minutes away from being at 3 hours.
Yeah, that's fine. We're just pausing right now because we're going to go eat
Yes.
and then come back because Missy's got chow for us.
Okay.
And we're going to eat and then come back, and then we will restart this again here in just a few seconds, okay?
She's been texting me.
Okay, bye.